I Love Mortgage Brokering, episode 90.
Want to rock your mortgage business? Then crank up the volume with your host, Scott Peckford, on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hi, Broker Nation. I am thrilled to introduce our guest today, Jared Stanley. Jared is Business Development Officer and Underwriter at Alt Mortgages. Alt Mortgages is one of the fastest growing private lenders based out of Vancouver, BC. Jared recently won the Underwriter of the Year from Camp, which there's some really stiff competition for. And I'm stoked for this interview today. Jared, are you ready to rock?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the mortgage business?
Yeah, actually, I started in 2008. My father had been in the business since early 90s, so just following the family footsteps. Basically started doing private lending and administration just because that's what we focused on. But in 2012, I wanted to make a change and kind of deal with a different type of borrower. Being a younger guy, I want to deal with other first-time home buyers. So I thought the easiest way to do that was to go to RBC. So I tried that out. Those were the dark days, or when I joined the dark side. Mm-hmm. But it was a great learning experience. Actually, when I was at RBC, I was really busy and it was going well. But I got a job offer from one of the private lenders I used to work with, asking me to come to Vancouver to do a business development / credit administration underwriting role. So I jumped on that. So actually in 2012, I was only at RBC for about 8 or 9 months. And then I came over to Alt. And I've been there ever since for about 3 years or so.
And no one ever usually starts out when they're little kids and they say, hey, I want to get into lending money. And it's kind of just something you fall into. So prior to getting into this, where was your path to getting into?
So you brought back a flashback. And it was like one of my most embarrassing moments in high school. And I don't know why this came out of my mouth. So I was sitting, it was grade 9 English class, and people were talking about what they were going to do when they grow up. And I was like, I'm going to be a mortgage broker. And the girl was like, how do you know that? And I was like, we were just reading Shakespeare. Okay. So I just want to throw it out there. And I was like, because it's already been written. And
that's what you said?
Yeah, I think back on that and I cringe. So I'm actually cringing right now, even remembering that. It was so embarrassing. But there you go.
How did you even know what a mortgage broker was in grade 9? Because most of my clients don't even know what a mortgage broker is until I explain it to them.
You know, my father, he was in the insurance industry, and then he migrated over to the mortgage industry, and he was always business for self. So he always had a home office. I was always around him while he was working and stuff like that. So I always had a good understanding. Of course, in school, they always ask you, what does your father do? You have to explain it. I think in grade 8, I also had to do a project saying, what your father does, and it had to be something to do with math. So it was a real easy one to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a good understanding of it. Basically, at that point in time, you're just kind of like, oh, he helps people purchase homes with bank financing. So, mm-hmm. Which it is, well, not as simple as that, but.
Right. Well, that's good. You're the first person I've interviewed in 90 people that have said, hey, in grade 9, I knew what I wanted to do, because most of them are like they end up here from some unconnected path usually.
I wish I could go back in time and not say that in front of the entire classroom, though, if I could. It was the most cringe-worthy thing I've ever said.
Well, hey, you got Mortgage Broker or Underwriter of the Year, so that's pretty awesome. There's a lot of underwriters out there, so to win that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So you're in the right space. So now, before we dive into your story, I always like to ask about a success quote that's really impacted your life or business. Can you share a quote that's really impacted you?
There's a couple. There's one that I, for the life of me, I can't find whoever said it. I do a lot of reading, like old technical documents, just regarding credit and portfolio administration. So, some of these papers.
So really fun stuff, you're saying?
Yeah, really fun stuff. So, sometimes it's like old thesis papers and stuff like that I try to read through. And one of them was a banker. He was quoted, equity doesn't make a bad deal good. It just makes a bad deal better. And what he's saying from that is, yeah, you can have all the equity in there, but still doesn't make it a great deal. And for me, I noticed that, especially, we're super safe. We'll never lose money on this file. But this person misses their payments each month. Our administrator has to call them, chase them down. They're always giving this long story of why they couldn't make the payment and all that kind of stuff. So I find that really applicable. Just because they're, a good deal that you're not going to lose money on, it doesn't make it really a good one. So there's that quote. But then Henry Ford, he always said, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do, which is, in my daily life, I really try not to say, I'm going to go do this. I only ever try to say things that I will do.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. So from the second quote, when you talk about it, there's a quote we have on the wall of our office too, is you are what you do, not what you say, which is it's kind of the same idea. So how have you applied that to underwriting? Because I can think of in my mind, I know that in the private space, there's some private lenders that are basically like, hey, yeah, well, they'll tell you that they'll do anything, but then you send in all the paperwork and then it's like, well, no, actually, we accept that, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, like you're killing me here.
Yeah.
You make it sound like it's like, yeah, we take everything if it's...
Yeah, and that would jump back to some of the lessons that we've learned. I mean, when Alt launched, we didn't really know what our niche was to begin with. So we just kind of advertised, one size fits all. But really, that's not the case. Our niche is really stuff under 65% loan to value and just beating everyone on rate.
Mm-hmm.
So the really, like, we do a lot of, like, I think our average loan to value in our portfolio is less than 56%. We do a lot of equity deals that are real safe, but again, our interest rates are very low. So it took us a while, and also going to our investor, showing him how rates have been trending downwards and stuff like that. And if we want these good quality deals, we gotta lower our rates. So eventually we ended up where we are now, which is, lowest rates 5.95, no lender fee. So it took a bit of time to get down there. So that's one of the things though, like, especially when someone calls me on a deal, I really, before I even put a commitment out on it, I really like to make sure that I'm comfortable with the value that's being stated. I know everyone relies on appraisal reports, but I think by looking on MLS, just seeing, reading about the local economy, wherever the property's at, you can get a really good idea or a sense of a range that the property can fall into. And I typically won't put a commitment out unless I'm comfortable that the property will fall into that range. And if I'm not comfortable, I'll straight up say, hey, look, this property is likely not going to be in that range. You're happy to order an appraisal, but I'm telling you right now, it's probably not going to come in. Most of the time, yeah, I sometimes can be wrong, but I get pretty close to the property value.
Right. Just so I can think like an underwriter for a moment, what kind of ways do you come up with your best guess or educated guess on a property without having an appraisal? So what kind of things do you guys look at?
I use Google and Google Street Views all day long. So I kind of jump on Google, I view where the property's at, then I look at extremity or maybe some negative externalities in the area. So highways, railways, and all that kind of stuff, flight paths. And I kind of move my way in and say, okay, well, this property's closer to areas where, public transport is accessible. Of course, if there's public transport, then it would appeal to more buyers and stuff like that. If it has convenient access to a highway, so we're good there. And then I keep going in, and then I go on Google Street View, take a little tour of the neighborhood, just briefly, just make sure there's no, rundown houses or boarded up windows and such. And then I jump on MLS and just see, based on the property type that's submitted to me, kind of what properties are listed for, and kind of build a range just based on exterior appearances. Really, you don't really know what's going on inside the house, but once you've seen a few listings in the area, you can kind of get a good price range. Of course, listings, they're not 100% accurate, and appraisers can't actually...
What, really? They're not?
Yeah. But appraisers can't even use listings in the report as an indicator of value, right? They can use it as an example, but they can't use it as an actual comp. So you always got to keep that in mind, that, these listings might be completely off. But when you're dealing in large urban centers, if you scroll into 10 blocks or so, there's going to be more than 30 properties typically listed in that one area. So it makes it really easy. It actually might be more than 10 blocks, but it makes it pretty easy. Basically, it's only when it's a unique property that's when it's really hard to peg what it'd go for.
So obviously you understand underwriting, especially on the B side. So somebody who's maybe wanting to do more in the B business, what's a big mistake that you see people make when they're trying to work B deals?
Yeah, it's a terrible pun. Which is alt deals have a story, It's terrible.
Oh, so yeah, you really into the puns, the Shakespeare and the like.
I'm terrible with puns, and I get it. I get it from my mom.
That's okay. It's all good, man. You get paid to underwrite anyway, so it's all good, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The most common mistake is not having a story that matches up with what I'm seeing. Because oftentimes I'll read through all the documentation before even reading your notes. I'll just skim through it briefly, jump back to your notes, and say, get the basic, like I'm looking for 65% loan to value. I'll look at that, read through the credit bureau, read through the app, and then jump back to your notes, seeing if it explains some of the delinquencies on the report, stuff like that. Just because we're an equity lender, a lot of equity lenders might have a different opinion on this, but we like to know the story because you like to know who you're getting in bed with, really. And it kind of jumps back to that quote that I said earlier. It's like, yeah, there might be a ton of equity in the property, but this borrower could be a pain to deal with. And really, the credit and the income aspect, I would say those are more used for pricing than anything else, because we rely solely on the equity. But at the end of the day, we kind of use the other two C's, credit and capacity, to determine how we should price it. That's kind of how we look at it. The other mistake I see is a lot of missing information. So sometimes you might submit it to Equitable Trust, get turned down. So then you submit it to us, but you have the old interest rate, and there you have the maybe there was a different closing date. So when we see that application, the data is incorrect. And another big one is not going through the credit bureau and matching it to the application. What is copied from the credit bureau to the application. Like I saw one file the other week where the person had scraped from, I think in file it's called scrape from liabilities or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he had done it like 4 or 5 times. So the liability section on the printout for the Filologist application was like 2 pages long. And this broker, for whatever reason, they didn't correct that. So I'm not sure if they ever even noticed. So
some of it's just being sloppy up front. And then, okay, so now I want to switch to you probably have some people that you deal with that you're like, man, when they send in a deal, this is like, it's beautiful. So give us some ideas on what we could do to make our B deals beautiful B deals,
Yeah. When I was brokering B deals, I would always, obviously you want to advocate for the client, but it is a B deal. So you want to go over both positive and negative points. In some B deals, there might be no positive points, but let's just cut to the chase and state those up front, and we'll make a solution based on that. Sometimes, some brokers will even forget to tell me what loan to value they need. But basically, it's just having good notes. Like I have a notes template that I could send you to share.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I use that every day, and it's highlights, lowlights, property details. It has hyperlinked links to the Google Map view. It has Street View links, so anyone else looking at that can click on it and go into Street View. It also, I look at houses on MLS, and then I link to that as well, providing a rough range. I summarize credit, income, all that kind of stuff. So basically anyone, especially when you're dealing with private investors that might be high net worth individuals, they might be on their boat somewhere. When you're trying to get that deal done, you really want to provide them something that they can look at and rely upon without even having to open the application and credit bureau. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, they always should, but you want them to be able to read it off their iPhone and say, yeah, approved as presented. Once it starts becoming a headache, like when we're just sitting here trying to decipher what you're sending us, it's just like when a client tries to explain their situation to you and you have to figure out what the heck these borrowers are getting at. We do the same thing. It's just, you just got to really make sure that communication is clear and everything's presented properly, and we should be fine. In terms of underwriting, of course, when you see brokers putting in that extra effort, on average, I think I work 10 to 12 hours a day. So I really, I don't mind staying late for the brokers that are working as hard as me, because I care about their business. But when someone sends me something that's sloppy, it's kind of like, I'll get to that once I'm done with everyone else that sent me a proper package, right? So I think that would help as well, getting your deals approved faster, is just having a concise package.
I think anybody listening to this, what you said there is just gold in terms of if you send in a messy deal, and it's not just you, and every underwriter is going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to start on this thing. Let me just finish some of these other ones that are like, I can actually get off my desk so I feel like I'm making progress. And then I'll get to yours when I...
Yeah.
So the cleaner, the tighter we can have our applications, the faster, the service we'll get, the better we'll be able to provide for our clients. And I think that's critical.
Yeah. And I think that just goes along with human nature. You never, like when you start cleaning your house, you don't start with the hardest thing first. You kind of, work top to bottom, and you get to the, you finally take out the trash at the end and stuff like that. So it's just human nature, really. You're going to do the easy ones first.
Mm-hmm. So make them as easy as possible for the person and clear. And so do you have some of the brokers you work with you can tell they have like templates that they use?
Yeah, a lot of them use the same template always. And that makes it really easy for me because I use their template because I have my own template, and I'll pull information off that and put it into mine. Now, mine's more detailed, of course, because I have to try to point out everything.
Well, and because it's your guys' money, so it's one thing. We're asking for money. You're writing checks, so I could see why you're going to want to have a few more details in there.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is I would always caution brokers to say, because I see it a lot, and I just find it kind of funny, but it's like, oh, good deal, or AAA credit, or house is in great condition. Well, those things are all subjective, right? Mm-hmm. So I always find it funny. It's kind of like when someone sends you an email and says, hey, I hope you're doing well. And especially when it's someone you don't really know, it's like, well, do you really hope that I'm doing well? Like, I don't really even know you, It's like one of those things that you're just filling a gap.
I think I sent you that email, didn't I? No, just kidding.
Or when you say, like, just following up in an email, it's kind of like that filler, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of emails start with, this is a great deal. And then I'll read through it. I'm just like, well, this is a terrible deal. Like, why'd you say it's great? But which happens a lot. Or, great, fantastic credit. And you look at it, it's like, well, they've only actually had a card open for a year, and it's only has $1,000 balance or $1,000 limit. So they really don't have that good of credits. It's just they haven't had time to mess up yet. And then, of course, property's condition. It's like, well, you're not really qualified to give that opinion and say what happens if it was in bad condition and someone lost money on it. Right. That's why I would caution and stay away from saying anything to do with quality or condition of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's really good advice. And so, obviously, winning Underwriter of the Year, were you surprised by that, or was that like, were you telling all your clients or brokers that, hey, nominate me because I'm awesome, or what happened there?
No. I would like to say that I'm pretty humble. When I won this, I had no idea. I think it was Kara that called me from camp. I thought she was calling to see if we would sponsor something at camp, which, I get calls like that often, maybe not from camp, and I was like, yeah, I know about the underwriter nomination. I was just waiting for it. Oh, well, could you sponsor a table? And she was like, well, you were nominated. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. She's like, well, you won. I was just like, what?
I didn't even know I was in this contest and I won?
Yeah, so I didn't know I was nominated. So one of our referral partners, I guess, wrote something really nice and flattering about me and sent it in to, and I guess it was reviewed by the Appraisal Institute of Canada, Sauder School of Business, and Credit Canada. Mm-hmm. I'm probably saying that wrong, but there was 3 members that went through all the nominations and they selected me. So, and I haven't read whatever they sent in, so I don't know what they said, but they obviously did a good job.
Right.
Yeah.
So that whoever it is probably also good at getting their deals done because they're probably good at putting together a story.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It's definitely a bit of sales in there, but I think just based on how fast we've grown, how much I'm in the office and how much I'm working. I wouldn't say that I'm the best underwriter in terms of knowledge. I might know about a specific niche, but I believe I'm one of the hardest working. So I think that's really what separated me maybe from the other nominees.
No, well, if you're putting in 12 hours a day, that's definitely commitment. And so I have a question for you so what's something that Alt Mortgages does that maybe would surprise people? So what's something that normal for you, but maybe is not? Is there a certain niche or area that you guys are good at?
Yeah, we do a lot of foreign purchases through power of attorneys. And I think that surprises a lot of brokers when we say that we'll do it. And then also sometimes, we're able to do 100% financing through, securitizing another property. So it's just, to me, it's just an inter alia, first mortgage or whatever that allows them to purchase the property. But to a lot of brokers, I don't think a lot of them think about inter aliaing other security, especially on the A side, the ones that haven't done too many private deals. They don't typically think of that. So that's one that was surprising. But, a lot of private lenders do that. And I'm sure a lot of private lenders also do the power of attorney with a foreign buyer. Of course, our rates, I think that's what surprises people the most, because, we're all pretty much we're in-house, right? So it's not like there's a management company that's managing our portfolio. It's us. I'm employed by the investor, right? So we have less costs involved with that. So a lot of the times it surprises people that we're not charging a lender fee, and also how transparent we are about certain things, about how our products work and stuff like that. So,
Have you guys ever secured anything other than real estate?
we have, but that's more so of the investment portfolio. Like that's on the other side, because some of the other guys in our office, they look at venture funds and all that kind of stuff. So that I'm not involved in.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious. So it sounds like you run a pretty lean operation. So do you have any like software or programs or anything you use to make things run smoother for you?
Yes, I personally use Lendesk. Lendesk is actually it's a loan origination platform that will be launching in spring 2016, and I'm one of the beta users that they constantly ask me for feedback. Brokers actually, I believe they can sign up for early access for the product if they actually go to lendesk.com. There's a short video they can watch and actually register for it.
Cool. And so do you find that helps you manage? I mean, if it's just right now, it's you kind of managing all of this business. So does it help you keep everything on track or?
Yeah. I mean, once you're underwriting, I think I underwrite close to 80 deals a month, which doesn't sound that high, maybe.
That's a lot for one person.
Yeah. So once you start getting to that kind of like, I think once we got over to 3 or 4 million a month in volume, I started having a real hard time tracking everything. So I really rely on the deal pipeline just to manage everything, because out of sight, out of mind, right? And you can't let any deals fall through the cracks. Especially, if I take Saturday off, I find that come Sunday when I'm preparing for Monday, it's really easy to miss things unless you have it all neatly organized and everything like that. So it helps a lot with that. And then also, of course, as everyone knows, we have a ton of paperwork that's very redundant and not useless, but there's just a ton of it. It's really just data entry, really. So it doesn't really take a lot of cognitive energy, but it can take a lot of time.
Does it automate it for you? Does it do it for you, or does it just make it like, can you like click a button and it pulls?
Yeah. So based on the information that's there internally, it will then generate documents based on what we've loaded into the system. So I'm not really a tech guy, so I can't give you the exact terminology, but
I can tell you, okay, any private lender who's listening to this podcast is going to go, you underwrite 80 deals a month by yourself, and you're not like, you're not insane. So I think that it's going to make something like Lendesk be very popular when it's available on a broader scale. So if somebody is interested, where would they go to, get early access?
Yeah, it's lendesk.com. So lendesk.com.
Okay. No, that's awesome. Yeah, so it's at a very high volume for one person to manage even just creating the paperwork.
Yeah, so I should say we have a good administrator that, she stops what she's doing to do my solicitor instructions. So she's actually creating those documents through Lendesk, but I certainly have to review everything and handle that. So some of the other paperwork, I can't say I do everything from start to finish, but I do manage most of it, pretty much all.
Right. And that's part of the reason you can keep your costs down, is you don't have as many layers of people required, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's huge. I mean, of course, I haven't taken a vacation in 3.5 years or so I would love to go on one. So, we are training someone new. But Lendesk helps a lot, especially, with it being accessible on iOS devices. It allows me, like if I'm out of the office, to have a clear view of what's going on and what deals I got to work on, or
Can you underwrite right from your phone?
You can.
Well, then you can go on vacation then. What's your problem? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, with me, I got a fiance now,
Yeah.
and if I'm on my phone all the time, she will, especially if we go on vacation,
I
because
know, I'm just messing with you.
she's happy if I come home for dinner. So I think I would get killed if I was on my phone.
Yeah, but it's possible. Okay, so and anybody listening to this can get links to everything that we talked about, as well as Jared's template that he uses. So if you're into the bee business, or even if you're not, I think it's going to be extremely useful for you. He's obviously very organized and systematic. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do the volume he does.
Well, again, I would like to say I got our credit administrator helps keep me organized. And
Okay. It's a team approach. It's a team effort.
yeah, we all pitch in, but I mean, right now there's just Terry and I, and then Val, who does her bookkeeping, but she does it all for the whole office and all the other things we got going on. And then we have another credit admin that started last Monday. Yeah, so it's a small team.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time for this interview today, and I hope Alt Mortgages continues to crush it. Thanks, Jared, so much.
Yeah, no worries.